Shalom. I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you regarding a Palestinian terror attack on a Jerusalem synagogue wherein 4 rabbis were killed. The details are as follows. 5 people were killed when 2 Palestinian terrorists brutally attacked Jewish worshippers in a synagogue and yeshiva in Jerusalem's Har Nof neighborhood on November the 18th. 7 people were wounded, including 2 police officers. At around 7 a.m. in the morning, the Palestinian terrorists, who carried with them massive knives and a gun, entered the Kehilat Yaakov synagogue in Jerusalem's Harav Shimon Agassi Street, whose facilities include both a synagogue and a yeshiva, which is a school of Torah learning, and carried out attacks in more than one location. 4 rabbis were killed in the attack and were immediately buried in Jerusalem. Israel police spokeswoman Luba Samri describes the event as follows. 2 Palestinian terrorists entered the Jerusalem synagogue in the neighborhood of Har Nof. They attacked with an axe, a knife, and a gun. 5 worshippers were killed. The police who arrived at the scene shot and killed the 2 Palestinian terrorists. Yaakov Amos was praying in the Jerusalem synagogue at the time of the attack. He described the events that happened as follows. During the prayers, I heard shots and I saw a worshiper wearing tefillin lying on the floor. The Palestinian shooter passed me from the right while shouting Allahu Akbar, which means God is great, and fired indiscriminately. 3 people fell immediately, and I saw him keep on massacring people, Amos said, and that one of the terrorists did not waste bullets and aimed directly at people. He fired and then he looked at me, and he chose people closer to him, shooting them at point-blank range. Yossi Barzani, one of the worshippers in the synagogue, recounted the ordeal as follows. In the middle of our prayers, 2 Palestinian terrorists entered shouting, Allahu Akbar, God is great. The synagogue was in panic, and I tried to flee. At a certain stage, one of the terrorists approached me with a knife, and there was a chair and a table between us. I drew back and ran from him and fled outside. In those moments, I asked God to save me. My prayer shawl got caught. I left it there and escaped. On the way out, I saw terrible sights and bodies. Akiva, an Israeli paramedic, said that he was greeted at the scene by the sight of a worshiper with stab wounds. Inside there was someone singing. I ran into the synagogue. There was a gunshot victim lying on the floor. I tried to treat him, but the gunfire started in my direction and we fled. I pulled the wounded man along, he said. The police arrived and surrounded the entrance, and then the terrorists ran out and they shot him. There was a wild gunfire. People ran out and frantic from the synagogue. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the shocking terrorist attack on the Jerusalem synagogue by saying, Israel is at the height of a terror campaign that is focused on Jerusalem. In the middle of Orthodox Jewish morning prayers, 5 innocent and pure Jews were murdered. We send our condolences to the families and wishes of recovery to the wounded, among them heroic police officers who prevented a heavy tragedy. Relating to the terrorists, Netanyahu said, the human animals who perpetrated this slaughter were full of hatred and incitement, deep hatred and terrible incitement against the Jewish people and its state. Palestinian sources named the terrorists as cousins Ghazan and Uday Abu Jamal from the Jebel Mukabir neighborhood of East Jerusalem. The families of the 2 terrorists who killed 5 people hailed the 2 as heroes, as candies were given out to celebrate the attack in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. Allah Abu Jamal, a cousin of the terrorists, said that Israeli policies were to blame for the attack at the synagogue, where the 2 Palestinian terrorists entered the synagogue during morning prayers, armed with knives and a gun. This occurred because of the pressures of the occupying Israeli government on the Palestinian people and in Jerusalem generally, and the ongoing harm to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This act is something normal for any person who is connected to his people, to courage, and to Islam. We got the usual death notification and we shouted with joy. People here also handed out candies to guests who came to visit and were happy for the martyrs. Residents of the Gaza Strip praised the brutal attack. Fireworks were set off in celebration, and from the mosque were heard chants of Allahu Akbar, God is great, in honor of the attack. Islamic Jihad also issued a statement calling the attack a natural response to the crimes of the occupier. Loudspeakers at mosques in Gaza called out congratulations. Fatah officials, that is, the Palestinian sect of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, made repeated statements in recent weeks praising deadly terror attacks on Israelis and calling for blood to purify Jerusalem of Jews. According to Palestinian Media Watch, the head of the media department for Fatah in Lebanon, Muhammad al-Bakari, praised the Palestinians who carried out 3 recent terror attacks that killed 4 Israelis and left a rabbi in critical condition. Al-Bakari sent a blessing of praise and esteem to the killers, saying, "They are the ones who heard the call of Yasser Arafat, while the Arab and Islamic nation ignored his call. Millions of martyrs are marching to Jerusalem," al-Bakari said. "They came out with their weapons, with their true belief that Jerusalem needs blood to purify itself of Jews." Last week, a representative of Palestinian Authority Ministry of Religious Affairs called on Palestinians to rush to Jerusalem and offer sacrifices in blood. Palestinian official Hassan al-Saifi said that Jerusalem had no need of declarations or religious rulings, but rather needs the religious scholars in particular to fulfill their duty, and that is to rush to Jerusalem and offer sacrifices in blood. Palestinian radio reports described the attackers as martyrs, and Hamas praised the attack. Furthermore, Hamas responded to the deadly terror attack at the Jerusalem synagogue by saying that the incident was in response to the death of a Palestinian bus driver found hanged in his vehicle earlier in the week. Hamas called for additional attacks after the 2 suspected Palestinian terrorists killed 5 people and a number of others at the Kehilat Yaakov synagogue in Jerusalem, amid an onslaught of unfounded claims in the Palestinian media that the 32-year-old bus driver Yusuf al-Ramuni was murdered by Jewish settlers in Jerusalem. An autopsy report concluded the driver's death was self-inflicted, resulting from hanging himself inside the vehicle. Hamas calls for the continuation of revenge operations and stresses that the Israeli occupation bears responsibility for tension in Jerusalem. Hamas spokesman Sami Abu Zuhri said, "The attack in Jerusalem is a reaction to the crime and execution of the martyr al-Ramuni and a reaction to the crimes of the occupation. And in reaction to the crimes of the occupation, the Hamas movement is calling for more revenge attacks upon Israel," Hamas said on its official Al-Aqsa TV. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas condemned the deadly attack and called for an end to what he said was Israeli provocation over the Temple Mount. The presidency condemns the attack on Jewish worshippers in their place of prayer and condemned the killing of civilians no matter who is responsible, said a statement from Abbas's office. "We condemn all acts of violence from all sources and demand an end to the invasions of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is located on the Temple Mount, the provocations of settlers, and the incitement by some ministers in the Israeli government." The statement said that it's time to end the occupation and put an end to everything that makes violence and tension. Israel President Benjamin Netanyahu responded to Abbas's comments by saying, "Abbas may have condemned the attack, but that isn't enough, because at the end of the same sentence, he connected the event to imaginary acts that have no basis that he claims Israel is conducting on the Temple Mount." Palestinian Media Watch revealed that Palestinian Authority Supreme Sharia judge and Abbas's advisor Mahmoud al-Habash appeared on official Palestinian Authority TV on November the 5th after several attacks and hours before another one took place in Jerusalem that left 2 dead, where he clarified that Abbas is indeed inciting terrorism. "First of all, allow me to say that we kiss every forehead, every hand, and every foot that carries out religious war at the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount and in Jerusalem. We are behind them. The leadership is with them. We are with them in every movement, in every action, in every deed, and we welcome what they are doing at the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Habash said, referring to Abbas's speech in mid-October when he called to block Jews from defiling the Temple Mount by all means necessary. Al-Habash noted, a few days ago, President Abbas greeted them, reinforced them, and requested more religious war from them. This statement may have angered the Israelis and the occupation that Abbas is inciting the Palestinians from Jerusalem to religious war. Yes, we are inciting the people in Jerusalem to religious war. Religious war means to protect and hold on to your religious ground, said Al-Habash in an admission of incitement. In his speech, Abbas said, we must all carry out religious war so as to prevent Jews by any means necessary from entering the Temple Mount because Jews have no right to enter it. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas for the gruesome terror attack on the Jerusalem synagogue and vowed to respond harshly. He said, Hamas, the Islamic movement, and the Palestinian Authority are disseminating countless lies and falsehoods against the state of Israel. They are saying that the Jews are contaminating the Temple Mount. They are saying that we are planning to destroy the holy places, that we intend to change the order of prayer there. This is all lies. These lies have already claimed a very heavy price. This is the direct result of the incitement led by Hamas and Mahmoud Abbas, incitement that the international community irresponsibly ignores, Netanyahu said in a statement. We will respond with a strong hand to the cruel murder of Jews who came to pray and were caught by dark, murderous hands. Israel Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon also blamed the incitement, lies, and hate circulated by Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Ya'alon vowed that Israel will chase down the perpetrators and those who sent them everywhere and in every way, within the borders of Israel and outside. Israel Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman called on the international community to respond to what he said was Abbas's anti-Semitic incitement, which he said caused the attack. Abbas has turned the conflict into a religious conflict between Jews and Muslims and has systematic incitement that leads against Jews, whom he defines as impure, who are not allowed to enter the Temple Mount. Is instructions to carry out nasty attacks like this, said Lieberman. Israel Economic Minister Naftali Bennett, the leader of the Jewish Home political party, also blamed Abbas for the attack. Mahmoud Abbas, one of the greatest terrorists to come from the Palestinian people, is directly responsible for the spilled blood of Jews wearing tallits and tefillin, he said, referring to images of the killings showing slain worshippers still wearing prayer shawls and phylacteries. While we were busy with our fantasies about the diplomatic process, we created for ourselves an interwoven infrastructure of terrorism and incitement. Abbas declared war on Israel, and we must treat it accordingly, he added. Israel Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein echoed Bennett in blaming Palestinian incitement for the attack and implied that Israel should cut ties with the Palestinians. While we are making an effort in calling for calm, the brutal incitement by Palestinian Authority leaders continues and worsens, Edelstein said. Israel should not be dealing with those whose ways is to slaughter innocents in our holy places, he added. Well, that's going to conclude this week's report, where we shared with you the details of a deadly Palestinian terror attack upon a Jerusalem synagogue wherein 4 rabbis were shot and killed. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.